I'm Chris Bober with Team Bober at Nebraska Realty. And if you can do me a favor, if you can go ahead and click the little subscribe button down there on YouTube, and also if you want, click the little bell that says notifications, and that way you'll be notified when any new evidence comes out, and you'll subscribe to my channel, which really, really helps. So today what we're working on is I'm making pulled pork sandwiches. So I'm gonna smoke a pork butt. This is about an 8 to 10 pound pork butt. A couple things to know about this. This actually is not a butt at all. It's actually a shoulder. It's part of the hog where they cut it off, and there's a whole bunch of muscles that kind of come together. So instead of trying to get in there and get each individual piece of meat out, they just basically lop it off and put it all together in one chunk. So this is a nice looking pork butt here. As you can see, it's got a fat cap on one side, and then it has all these muscles in here with lots of connective tissue, lots of tendons, lots of fat in there. And if you just went ahead and cooked this and brought it up to temperature and you sliced it and ate it, it's gonna be really rough, right? Because all this stuff's gonna harden and it's gonna make it chewy. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook this thing as slow as humanly possible, because all the connective tissue that's in there, if you kind of braise it and bring it up to temperature slowly, then that stuff all kind of melts away. And what it does is it will become moisture and flavor inside this big piece of meat. So when you pull it apart and shred it, you're gonna have that fat and gristle all kind of melted down, and it's gonna make it nice and tasty. Okay, another couple things to know about a pork butt is that it has a fat cap right here, right? So this is basically the exterior when they cut it off of the pig, and this is going to act like an insulator. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to put your pork butt so that wherever your heat is coming from, the fat cap actually acts as an insulation tool so you don't cook the meat too fast. Remember, if you cook the meat too fast, the connective tissue isn't going to melt and create flavor and create tenderness. It's just going to harden and get tough and gristly. The fat cap prevents it from cooking too fast, right? The other thing to know is here, you got a whole bunch of fat on here. Like, I don't mind the fat in the middle, but some of this fat, especially on the outside, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off. Mostly because if it's gonna be on the outside, and you're gonna create a nice bark on this, and that's where a lot of the flavor is, and you really don't want this stuff to burn, right? The fat's just gonna drip, it's gonna burn, you're not gonna wanna eat that. So fat on the inside, good, fat on the outside, bad. So I'm gonna cut off as much of this fat as I can, just because no one wants to eat that stuff. It's not gonna come out really good, especially if it's on the outside, okay? So as I cut this off, I don't wanna cut the fat cap off, but I cut some of this fat and gristle off. Now, as you look at this piece of meat here, 90% of it is surface area. 10% of it's surface area, about 90% of it is inside the piece of meat. So when you cook it, the smoke and the rub and the marinade, it's not gonna get in there that deep. So what I would say is don't be afraid to really hit this with a heavy dose of, I'm gonna cut a little bit more of this off here. Don't be afraid to hit this thing with a really, really heavy dose of seasoning. Now I got a couple seasons I like. The AP Rub, this is just garlic, salt, and pepper. It's made by Killer Hogs. I'm a huge fan of Malcolm Reed. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit this thing with a nice layer of salt and pepper and garlic, which is the AP Rub. You can make your own. And I'm gonna go super heavy on this, right? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get the whole thing really, really good, okay? You can't put too much seasoning. Remember, what happens is when you cook this thing, it is actually you're gonna shred it up. So all this flavor that's on the outside is gonna mix up with the meat that's on the inside. So you need enough flavor on the outside layers so that when it mixes up and dispenses and goes in there with the interior meat, which doesn't have any seasoning or smoke, it actually will add some more flavor. So don't be afraid to put too much on here. I'm also gonna use the BBQ Rub. Again, any kind of barbecue rub that you like, it's gonna give it good flavor. It's gonna give it a nice color. And you cannot put too much of this stuff on, right? Put a lot of it on there. And we're gonna go ahead and put it on everything. We're gonna rub it so it sticks in. If you want, you can use something like mustard as a binder, but this is nice and moist, so it's gonna be able to kind of stick here real good. So I'll go ahead and finish this up. Put a whole bunch on there, whole bunch. Like I said, you can't put too much. Kind of rub it in there. All right, make sure you coat the sides. Get the sides really good. Okay, So as you can see, we got this thing really, really coated. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go out and start up the grill, and I'll show you how I do that. But I'm gonna let this sit, and what's gonna happen is it's gonna kind of come up to room temperature, and it's gonna get the meat sweats, right? And it's gonna start to release some moisture, and then that moisture is going to grab the seasoning, and it's gonna form a nice protective layer that will be the major seasoning for this piece of meat. So stay tuned. In just a couple minutes, I'll show you how I set up the grill for a nice and slow smoked pork butt for pulled pork sandwiches. I'm gonna do it on my Weber Kettle Grill. All right, we're back. We're gonna go ahead and get the grill started. And again, today I'm cooking making pulled pork sandwiches by smoking a pork butt on a Weber Kettle Grill. So I'm gonna show you kind of how I set this up. Now, what I got right here is a classic setup. This is just a void in the middle, and I'm gonna light it down here. I got a couple of these blocks here, these fire starters, and this is gonna light the charcoal. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna start, and it's gonna snake its way around this whole thing, and it's gonna burn nice and slow. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually put the pork butt, I'm gonna put the grate in and put the pork butt over here so that there's indirect heat the whole time. It's gonna provide heat, it's gonna smoke it nice and easy the whole time. As you can see, I got cherry and hickory in there. These are cherry, and this is hickory chunks here. And that's gonna provide some of the flavor in there. And what it should do is should give me several hours of a slow smoke that continually just kind of moves down the chain here as it snakes through. This one didn't light. But I'll go ahead and get that stuff lit, get the grill up to temperature. I wanna see a grill about 250 degrees is really the max temperature I want to give a nice and slow roast and a slow smoke to a pork butt. So let me get this these coals up to temperature. I'll come back and show you how we put it back on the grill. Alrighty, so we have got the grill up to temperature is right about 250 degrees. You can see we got the smoke rolling, and this charcoal right here is just starting, and it's gonna just continually burn its way through here. It's gonna hit this hickory, it's gonna hit the cherry all along the way. I do have the pork butt set over here off to the side, and when I go ahead and close this up, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the vents about halfway closed, halfway open, because what I found is if you keep them all the way open, it gets way too high and the charcoal burns too fast. You want low and slow so you melt that connective tissue. You also want to infuse the meat with as much smoke as possible because that flavor is going to have to carry for the entire piece of meat. So we're going to put this on. I'll check back in maybe an hour or two, see how she's looking. And it's a long process. It's going to take probably 3-4 hours just before we might wrap it. So it's gonna take a while. Stay tuned with me, and we'll check in soon. All right, we're back and on our pulled pork recipe here, and we got the pork butt. It's been on the grill for about 2 hours now, and as you can see, we're getting good smoke in there, and we're starting to get some good bark forming on the outside. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just spritz it just a little bit on the outside because I want to keep this moist and prevent it from burning. All right, so I'm just gonna give it a little spritz. I got a little spray bottle here with just water in there. You can actually put vinegar, apple cider vinegar, or apple juice in there, but I like to have just the water in there. And I'm gonna try to keep it moist because I want that bark to set nice and good on there. You can see the wood's burning good. We got good smoke rolling, and we're about, I don't know, maybe halfway through that little snake of charcoal that we have. But we'll check back in just a little while. We got maybe another hour or two that we're going to keep this on the smoke before we wrap it and let it finish. So stay tuned, and we'll check back in with you soon. Alrighty, we're back with our pulled pork butt being smoked on the Weber Kettle Grill. And as you can see, I got it on here, and I'm about to pull it off. When I go ahead and do that, most of that is stuck on there. It's got a good little color to it, and I feel like the bark is set in really, really good. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing off, and I'll take you inside and show you how I wrap it up and then finish it off over several hours, just a low and slow cook. But we're kind of done with the smoking and the exterior phase of this, and we'll be right back to show you how we wrap it up and finish it off. All right, so we are back, and we are gonna move on to stage 2 of cooking our pulled pork. We got a pork butt here, and we had it on the smoker with hickory and cherry smoke, and it was about 250 degrees for about 3.5 hours. And what I got on here is a nice, beautiful bark. This is nice and crisp. The rub that I put on there, the salt, pepper, garlic, and then this here killer hogs, it set in there nice. So this doesn't come off. If I go ahead and wipe it, it really doesn't come off. That's about all we can do with smoke. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna finish it off And I'm gonna use the oven. You can go ahead and throw it back on the grill, but honestly, it's not gonna take any more smoke, and we're gonna wrap it up in foil. So it's just a heat source that we need. So I'm gonna put it in a 250-degree oven. But what I wanna do here is I wanna add a little bit of moisture to it. I wanna add some flavor to it. So I'm gonna take some of this here. He has this, again, this is great stuff, Killer Hog's vinegar sauce, and I'm gonna pour it over the top. There isn't much scientific about it other than I wanna make sure I get a good coating on the whole outside. And what's gonna happen is I got it in this aluminum pan that has a rack in the bottom. It's a wire rack in the bottom, so it's not gonna sit in its own juices, it's gonna sit above it. And what's gonna happen is he's gonna finish this thing off. There's the oven's ready. It's gonna finish this thing off. I need to get it to about 200 degrees. The internal temperature right now isn't anywhere near that. So it's gonna take me a good 3-4 hours to get this thing finished off. I'm gonna put a probe in there and I'm gonna watch the temperature. When it gets to 200, we'll come back and I'll show you how to take it and pull it apart and make pulled pork. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take aluminum foil and I'm gonna cover it. And then all I'm gonna do, 250-degree oven, I'm gonna put it in here. And I'm gonna give it at least a couple hours before I even check it. I'm gonna go and check the internal temperature. When it gets to 200 degrees, it's done. So stay tuned for us to come back and see a finished product, and I'll show you how we back. The pork butt has been in the oven for probably about 3.5 hours, and it finally got up to right just under 200 degrees. So I went ahead and pulled it out, and I brought it back out here to the grill. You can see I just kept it in the pan, and it's on the little rack there. And what I'm gonna do is I wanna get a little bit of a crust to the edge of it. So I'm gonna take, and I'm gonna just baste this, right? I want to have a little bit of a crust on here. I'm gonna put the barbecue sauce all over this. And what's gonna happen is I'm gonna leave it on the grill here. It's about 250 degrees. I'm gonna give it a good, 15 or 20 minutes. And what's gonna happen is that sauce is gonna set up and become tacky. And it's gonna create a nice little crust on the outside. And then I'm gonna pull it off, let it cool down a little bit, and I'll be back to show you how I'm gonna take it apart and make it into pulled pork sandwiches. You'll notice with the pulled pork, for this pork butt, you can see it's got kind of a natural little thermometer in there. When you pull out the bone and it comes out clean like this, you know it's done all the way. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start pulling this thing apart. You can see the beautiful smoke ring we got in here, and we're gonna kind of set it out there, and this thing is smoking hot. I'm just gonna pull it out. I'm gonna start pulling off all the pieces here. I'm gonna put them out there on the tray here, and what I'm gonna do, that is hot. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna basically take it and I'm gonna start shredding it by hand. Just kind of pull it apart and put it out there. We're gonna mix it all together, and we got graduation here coming up in a couple days. And go ahead and look at this beautiful meat. You got the smoke ring in there, you got the nice bark on the outside, and this thing's gonna be all mixed together, and it's gonna come out just beautiful. Tons of flavor in there, it's got a great bark. If you want, put a little bit of barbecue sauce in there as you mix it up. I'm gonna throw it in the fridge, and on graduation day, we're gonna for the party, we are going to just reheat it nice and slow, and it's gonna come out. We're gonna make pulled pork sandwiches, and it's gonna be great. So it's gonna be awesome. So go ahead and read the recipe below. I'm gonna include all the steps I did, the ingredients I used, and how I did it. And if you like what we're doing, please click the subscribe button down there and give us some comments. Share your recipes, what I did right, what I did wrong. I'm always in the presence of mind to learn from other people out there and interact out there. Hope you enjoyed it, and go ahead and eat some pulled pork sandwiches. Try this out, it'll be great.